Okay, good morning, guys. This is the end of chapter 8, so we're going to do two sections of lessons, and then it's 8.2.2 and 8.2.3, and then we just have the practice test, and next week you'll take the test. So, in 8.2.2, we're talking about radical functions, and so this is, we've been talking about rational functions, which people do get these confused, so you have to be careful that you, you know, uh, pay attention to which ones you're talking about and use the right terminology. So a radical function, the parent function for a radical is this. Okay, so it's y equals the square root of x. So it's basically just half. So here's a quadratic function. So a radical function is taking this and turning it on its side. But we don't have two parts for a couple of reasons. One, if we had two parts, would it be a function? No, because it wouldn't pass the vertical line test. So it's just, and we don't take the square root of a negative number, right? So we can square a negative number. So this is like x, negative x squared right here. Like you can square a negative number, but you can't take the square root of a negative number. So that's why we only have this piece of it right here. Okay, so here's a radical function, and it's going to translate just like everything else we've done has translated. Okay, so if we add 1, then it's going to move up 1. If we subtract 1, then it's going to move down 1. If we do the square root, let's get a different color. If we do the square root of x plus 4, then it's going to move to the left 4. Okay, so if we do, let's see, if we do the square root of x minus 3, then it's going to move to the right 3. And then any combination of those. And then how do you think you get it to flip the other direction? So these are all going towards the right. How do you think you get it to go towards the left? Who's going to say it? I'll give you a hint. We need to reflect it. It needs to be reflected. So how did we reflect a parabola? We put a negative in front of it. So negative square root of x. So if you said negative square root of x, then that would reflect it going to the other direction. Okay, so those that's how we graph a radical function. It's not too bad. You can always use your calculator. Some of these are cube roots, which do have like a little tail like this. So it's like a cubic function, but on its side. So use your calculator to help you graph those. So all of 8.2.2 is graphing. So that should be pretty simple. And doing domain and range. So let's talk about domain and range real quick. So I'm going to go back to my parent function. Let's see. I'm going to get a new slide. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my parent function. Okay, and this starts at 0, 0. So this is y equals x, square root of x. So the domain is 0 to infinity, and the range is 0, 0 to infinity, because I can't go less than 0 for the domain or the range. Remember, domain is your x values and range is your y values. So if I listed every single ordered pair, which I can't do because there's infinitely many ordered pairs, but if I could, all of them would be greater than 0 for the x and the y. Okay, so then if I shift this function and I have y equals the square root of x minus 3 plus 2. Okay, so minus 3 is going to be 1, 2, 3 plus 2 is going to be right here. Okay, so now my domain is 3 to infinity, and my range is 2 to infinity. And it does include that number, so these should actually be brackets, if you remember from standard notation. So, does that make sense? So now x can be everything that is 3 or greater, and y can be everything that is 2 or greater. So make sure you review a little domain and range if you need to. Okay, that's pretty much it for section 8.2.2. For 8.2.3, we are solving some radical equations. So you're going to see things like, let's do something simple. This is not a problem. X minus 16 equals 3. Okay, so so usually when we solve equations, we do opposite operations, right? So when we had, 4x equals 10, what's happening between 4 and x? It's being multiplied, so the opposite is divide. When we have x minus 3 equals 7, what's happening between x and 3? It's subtracting. What's the opposite of subtract? Add. Okay, so we do opposite operations. So what is happening right here? It's taking the square root. What's the opposite of square rooting something? Who's got it? Okay, I hope you said squaring something. The opposite of square root is square. So I'm going to square this side. If I square this side, gotta square this side. So square root and squared, those basically just cancel each other out. Equals 9, add 16, x equals 25. Okay, so you're just squaring it. Squaring both sides. If it's a cube root, so if you have the cube root of x plus 2 equals 4, then you cube both sides. So then you'd have x plus 2 equals 4 to the third is 64 minus 2, 62. Is that right? Okay, so then sometimes they get a little more complicated. For example, let's do number 11 on your homework. So this is 8.2.3, number 11. And the problem is the square root of x plus 18 equals x minus 2. So it's a little more complicated because over here we don't just have one number, we have a binomial. So I'm going to square both sides. So this x plus 18, this I need to square. So remember, this is actually x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I'm going to have to dub-distrib, FOIL, hashtag dub-distrib, or FOIL, or whatever it is that, however you say this, but x times x is x squared. And I'm going to go ahead and do it in all one step, minus 4x plus 4. Okay, now what? Who has an idea? Let's combine all like terms on one side. Who said that? Minus x, minus x, minus 18, minus 18. So 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 14. So now we need to, what do? One of the F words. Factor. Okay, so minus 7 plus 2. So x can be 7 or x can be negative 2. Those are our answers. We do have to check that both of those answers will make the radical greater than 0, and they will. So we are good. Okay, let's do one more of those kinds of problems. This is number 12 on your homework. Square root of 3x minus 11 equals x minus 3. Okay, so what's the opposite of square rooting? Squaring. So if I square one side, I have to square the other side. So 3x minus 11 equals, and then remember this is really x minus 3 times x minus 3. So that's x squared minus 6x plus 9. There's a pattern to that, guys. You square the first number, square the last number, and then multiply this one times 2. Just FYI. And then I'm going to move these over. So minus 3x plus 11 plus 11. So then I have 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 20. So that's x minus 4, x minus 5. So x is 4 and x is 5. And both of those will still make the radical greater than 0. So like if I plug those in for here, 3 times 4 is 12 minus 11 is 1. So that's positive or greater than 0. 15 minus 11 is 4, greater than 0. So those work. It is good. Okay, so those are the 2 lessons. So these last 2 lessons really shouldn't be too bad. Yay. Okay, so then there's just a subchapter, and then there's a practice test. So here's what I want y'all to do right now for the practice test. Okay, so however many minutes are left in class, this is like a game. Game time, there's a winner. There'll be a prize. Note. Miss Clark, get prize for winners. Got it. Okay. So here's what you're going to do. We're going to divide into 4 groups. I say 4 groups. I'm not there. Y'all can actually change, but I think 4 groups would be best. So you're going to have 4 groups. So Miss Clark's going to put the practice test up on the screen. And so however many minutes or like, ideally, you're going to get 1 minute per question. Okay? So hopefully there's 20 minutes left. There should be at least 20 minutes left because I haven't even used 15. Okay, so 20 minutes, 1 minute, maybe 1 minute, 30 seconds. So 1 minute or 1 minute per 30 seconds. So, and so here's what you do. You're going to show them the question. Y'all are going to do the question in your group. Okay? And Miss Clark, you and Mr. Shorts, you have to just put your hand in front of the projector when you go to the next question so they can't see the answer. I learned this a few weeks ago. It was like a genius moment. Okay? So put your hand in front of the projector, like a, lens, so they can't see whenever you go because when you go from one question to the next, it'll show them the answers. So you write down the answer, but don't show them the answer. And then whichever group gets the most right will be the winner. Okay, so you only have 1 minute or 1 minute and 30 seconds, however much y'all decide, per question. In your group, y'all do the question, make sure you don't show them the answers, and then we'll see who wins. Got it? Fun game. Game time! And there'll be a prize. The ultimate prize is doing well on your Chapter 8 test, though, guys, right? Are you with me? Okay, so you're going to do that now. Have fun. And I will not see you next week, but I will send you a video next week. So as we embark on Chapter 9. I haven't even looked to what it is, but I'm excited because I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Okay, bye, guys. I will talk to you later. Have a great week.